Looking to expand your Amazon selling to other foreign marketplaces, or maybe you want to see if you can source your products from other countries other than just China. Well, India might be the answer for both of these. Today, we're going to talk to an expert on both subjects who is going to let us know all of the latest and greatest for selling and sourcing in India. How cool is that? Pretty cool, I think. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Serious Sellers Podcast by Helium 10. I am your host, Bradley Sutton, and this is the show that's a completely BS-free, unscripted, and unrehearsed, organic conversation about serious strategies for serious sellers of any level in the Amazon or Walmart world. And we've got somebody from the other side of the world. It's right now here in my time. It's Sunday evening at, 8 o'clock p.m. But what time is it over there, Mehgla?
Hi, Bradley. I'm in Singapore, and it's 12 p.m. here. On Monday morning.
12 p.m. on Monday. Okay, so we're going back to the future with me here. But if you guys are watching this on YouTube, I look a little flushed, or if you're listening to this, I sound a little out of breath. I just came from a Sunday night is basketball night here at my house, and that's where I record this podcast. And you guys maybe have seen on Instagram before, I have a full basketball court at my house with a humongous Helium 10 logo. So I'm 7 days a week Helium 10 here, even when I'm playing basketball. So I'm still catching my breath. I'm a little bit old to be playing basketball, but you got to stay in shape somehow. So anyways, we're not here to talk about my out of shapeness, Mehgla. We're here to talk about some of your specialties. And this is now the third time you've been on the podcast. And the other times you've really enlightened us about, selling in Amazon India, sourcing from India, especially, for sellers that are selling in Europe and selling in the United States. And so we wanted to, talk a little bit about what's new in that world. The last time, you were on, it was, right smack dab in the middle of the pandemic. And, we talked about sourcing from India, especially since, there was a lot of issues, going on with sourcing. But now I think, in the last year, probably the biggest issue that has been going on is the shipping times out of China, which is, where still most people source from. And so my first question is just, me personally, stuff that used to take me like once it hit the docks over there in China, get to the U.S. port in like 2.5 weeks, and then maybe another week or so to get to me after customs and all that stuff. But now, that same 1 month shipping time door to door is like 3 months plus for me. I'm just wondering, from your network, if you are sourcing from India, is it the same shipping times? Is it like the same things that are affecting the ships coming from China? Is it also affecting India sourced items as well?
So it is affecting shipments from India, but to not such an extreme degree like it is affecting shipments from China. And there are a couple of reasons for that. So first of all, most of the shipments from China go to the West Coast. And so that's where most of the congestion is, because, China, of course, ships the majority of imports coming into the US are from China. Whereas from India, most of the shipments go to the East Coast. So it's not very congested at the East Coast. And we haven't been seeing that many delays on the East Coast. I mean, maybe a week to 10 days, but nothing is close to what we're seeing from China, with shipments going to the West Coast. In terms of cost increases, so there have been increases in shipment costs from both China and India. But again, from India, the costs have not increased that much as they have increased from China. So just as an example, maybe around last month or so, the cost of a 40-foot container from Mumbai to New York was around the $12,000 mark, whereas from China, 40-foot is around $15,000 and above. So I think that's something to consider as well. The shipping costs have not gone up as much as they have from China. In fact, last year, container costs were up to $30,000 from China. But from India, the max that they had gone up was maybe around 15, 16 at that point, when it was going up really, really high from China.
Now, just, in general, I think some people are saying, the growth, at least, of e-commerce in the USA has slowed. I mean, it grew so rapidly during the pandemic. It was crazy, like 4 or 5 years of growth, what would normally take in 1 year. But now it's not necessarily completely slowed to a halt, but obviously, as things open up, it's going, the curve is kind of flattened. But, I was reading this article in eMarketer that actually in India, e-commerce is just continuing to skyrocket, like India and the Philippines, but obviously India is a lot bigger country than the Philippines. But can you talk about that a little bit? Like I was looking at some of the projections of how e-commerce. Matter of fact, let me pull this up here. Yeah, retail e-commerce sales in India 2021 to 2025, and it's like, according to this chart I'm looking at, it's supposed to like double just like within the next couple of years. So like what's behind this huge increase over there?
Yeah, so e-commerce sales in India are breaking records. So just to throw out some figures, in 2019, overall e-commerce sales, and this is just for the festival season in October. So, similar to the US where you have Christmas season, there's this festival season in October, November in India because that's the festival of Diwali, which is sort of like the Christmas in the US. So during the 1 month festival season in the in India, October, November 2019, sales were 5 billion US dollars. 2020, in the same period, it was 8.3 billion US dollars. 2021, can you guess what were the sales in 2021, October, November, that 1 month festival period?
No idea. I'm assuming you're going to give us some flabbergasting number here.
9.2 billion US dollars, and that is almost double the amount of sales in 2020 in 2019. So of course the pandemic and COVID and everything has had a huge impact on e-commerce sales in India, as it has everywhere. But overall, even regardless of the pandemic, what's really happening is that a lot of the tier 2 cities are getting, people in these smaller cities are getting access to mobile phones and 3G and 4G connectivity. So overall, internet connectivity and adoption of internet is increasing, and therefore there is an increase in e-commerce sales. So even without the pandemic, e-commerce sales would have grown, and they were growing even before the pandemic. But of course, because of the pandemic and lockdowns and all, it has just skyrocketed. So yeah, e-commerce sales are growing really fast. And Amazon and Flipkart, those are the two key marketplaces over there. Flipkart is, of course, owned by Walmart. And between the two marketplaces, they control about 80% of the overall e-commerce market. And Amazon Seller Services, their sales increased about 50% in the financial year of 2020 to 2021. And then similarly, there's one website called Myntra that's owned by Flipkart. They reported an increase of 44% in overall revenue. So yeah, I mean, my point is e-commerce is booming in India right now. It's just growing significantly.
Okay, so now those two main ones, Amazon and Flipkart. The last numbers I saw, Amazon is number one. Flipkart, it's like maybe a little more than half or so. But like in America, it's similar. It's Walmart who's number two, which I guess makes sense. That's Flipkart over there. But I think the gap, at least online, of course, I'm talking about, is a lot bigger between Amazon and Walmart here. But a lot of the Walmart sellers, a lot of them are selling on Amazon first, or they are already selling on Amazon before Walmart.com. What about in India? Are these like completely different kind of niches? Like, for example, there's Wayfair in America, which is like mainly like furniture and things like that. So it's not a lot of the same sellers that you see on Amazon. But in Amazon India or in Flipkart, are these the same sellers, same products, or are these different niches?
So they're very similar. In fact, Flipkart is older than Amazon, and it was set up as an all-in-one kind of platform where you can buy everything. So it was sort of like Amazon in the U.S. And then, of course, Walmart came along and bought Flipkart. So yeah, very similar in terms of product categories. You can buy everything on both of these websites. And typically, the products that really sell well on both of these websites are electronics. Those are the number one categories, and especially mobile phones. Those are doing really well. Then we're also seeing a lot of people buying appliances online, and not only small, kitchen, household appliances, but bigger appliances like fridges and TVs and all those things. And then health and fashion are also big categories. We're seeing things like gym equipment and supplements doing really well. And another category quite interesting is chocolates and other types of food items. So for some reason, Indians love all types of chocolates, and especially during the festival season. Of course, there's people buy gifts and give chocolates as gifts. So yeah, those are some of the categories that are growing well on both platforms.
Okay, now what about the makeup of the origin of the sellers? As we know in USA, of course, there's a lot, a lot of American sellers, but there's tons and tons of sellers that are based in China, as well, and then a spitter spatter from around the world, people who originate from around the world. In India, is it like 90% of the sellers are based out of India, and then the rest of the 10% are from foreign countries, or I know you might not have the exact number, but if you had to guess, what would it be?
Yeah, so the majority are based in India, and there are a lot of brands selling on Amazon and Flipkart as well. So, for example, the international brands like Samsung, LG, all of those have their marketplaces. But again, those are Indian companies, and they're already selling offline in India, and so they're just extending their reach, on Amazon and other marketplaces. So, yeah, but in terms of general independent sellers, I would say, I don't know, 95% are based in India. I don't see a lot of overseas sellers currently selling in Amazon India, and I think there's such a huge opportunity that people should tap into. And I think one of the reasons why it's not why there are not so many sellers from other countries is because it's not easy to set up an Amazon India account. You need to have GST registration, and you need to have a company in India in order to set up an account. Of course, there are other ways to do it. You could maybe partner with somebody, and so, but it's not as easy as just setting up a US Amazon account where you don't need to have a company in the US. So I think that's one reason why there are fewer overseas sellers. Also, India is a very different market. It's if you're coming from the US or Europe, you have to understand the types of products that are in demand, the culture, and it's also a very price sensitive market. So a lot of sellers don't do well because they don't understand that profitability is going to be they're going to get profitability in mass sales. So it's not you're not going to be selling high value products and having high profit margins, but you're going to be selling a lot more products, and then you have smaller profit margins. So you have to be able to sell at scale in order to be profitable in Amazon India.
Okay, good to know. So, when you say it's a little bit harder setting up, you have to set up a company. What does that entail? Like, me personally, I'm based here in California, obviously. I mean, do I need to know somebody there, and they would have to, go into local courthouses or something to file paperwork and things like that? Can I do it completely remote from here? We just had somebody, I'm not sure if you're familiar with that. I had somebody on the podcast a few weeks ago from the company ZEE, and they said they help people in different countries. We didn't talk too much about India. We're mainly talking about like Australia and Japan and stuff. What's that process like for a foreigner to set up a Indian-based company?
So, yes, you've got to set up a company in India, and you also have to have a local director in order to have a company. But there are service providers that provide these services. So it can totally be done online. You don't have to visit India, but you have to, get these service providers to help you. And they're usually chartered accountants and lawyers and all. So they will help you set up the company. They will also provide a local director. And of course, you'll have to pay a fee for that. And most importantly, they will help you with your GST filings. So in India, you've got to file your GST, taxes in your GST filings every month. And it's a very long drawn process. And also these companies will help you do that. They'll also help you file your tax returns. So it is an expense, and it is, something that you have to spend time and effort to do. So if you're really a small seller, you're just starting out, maybe it's not the right step for you to take. But if you're an established seller and you're doing really well in the US and you have product categories that are in demand in India, then this might be a good step for you. The other thing I want to mention is that Amazon India themselves, they have a team that's known as the International Brand Partnerships. And they are actively looking for global sellers who are doing well overseas on other Amazon marketplaces and who want to launch on Amazon India. So I've spoken to this team a couple of times. And in fact, I've also helped introduce a couple of brands from Singapore to this team over here, and they're super helpful. They can, help you in a couple of ways. First of all, they can advise you on how to set up a company in India. Or if you're not ready for that, they can also help you partner with existing importers or existing sellers, and then those sellers act like distributors of your product on Amazon India. So that is an option as well to consider if you are maybe, if you're doing well in other marketplaces, if you're an established seller in other marketplaces.
All right, let's switch gears now. And let's talk about the other side of the supply chain. Before selling, got to find a supplier. And so in the past, we've talked about the kind of industries, I guess you could say, or materials that India specializes in, where regardless of shipping issues or prices, that it's actually from day one a better idea to go to India than China. I believe in the past, some different textiles and other things. What about now? Now we're in 2022. What are the top kind of like categories that if I'm going to get into this category as far as on the retail side? Hey, if I'm going to start selling this on Amazon, wherever I'm selling it, I should probably consider some Indian based manufacturers.
Yes, and there are certain categories that we're already seeing a lot of Amazon sellers have success in. And the biggest category is home products and home decor items that are made from natural materials like wood, metal, cotton, jute, those kinds of natural, eco-friendly materials. That is India's strength. And a lot of these products are handmade, or even if they're machine made, there's some component of handcraftedness in these products. So these are things like wall shelves that are made of mango wood. Now mango wood is very specific to India. You won't be able to find it in China, and it's a very durable, long lasting, low cost wood that's also very sustainable. And so there's things like wooden bowls and trays and other products that are made out of wood. Metal, again, huge variety of brass, aluminum, steel, whether it's home decor items, kitchen items, cutlery, pots and pans and urns, for example. So lots of those kinds of things. Baskets, so laundry baskets and other types of storage baskets that are made out of eco-friendly materials such as cotton, jute, all of those things. Macrame products. So that's again a lot of sellers, whether it's wall hangings or planters, a lot of macrame things are doing well too. Textile based products, that's another huge category. And we're seeing a lot of organic cotton products coming out of India and being bought by Amazon sellers. So there's furnishings, there's bed sheets, bed covers, bedspreads, cushion covers, baby products, a lot of baby apparel, baby bed sheets, baby diapers, like reusable baby diapers. Also kitchen textile based products, so aprons, gloves, all of those things. The other category that I'm seeing a lot of interest in is fashion, and specifically leather products. So things like leather wallets, leather travel bags. So travel is, people are interested in travel again, and people want to travel. So we're seeing like those leather duffel bags or travel bags. That's those are in demand. Other types of leather garments like leather jackets. Also, eco-friendly products. So these are things like areca palm leaf plates or other bags and fashion products that are made from plant-based materials, for example. So, yeah, I mean, these are some of the top categories that I'm seeing sellers source from India and be successful in. So, if you are considering any type of handmade product or product made from eco friendly natural materials, India is definitely the place to go, and especially organic cotton. India is huge in organic cotton, way better than China in terms of the number of suppliers and also the authenticity of certifications of organic cotton. So, yeah.
Okay. All right. Now, a lot of people know this, but some might not. People think that Alibaba.com is only for Chinese and manufacturers. It's not. You can find tons of suppliers on Alibaba.com also for India. But what are some other ways that people could go? Maybe there's something you just said there, and they're like, hey, that's my category. Where can I go other than Alibaba.com to find suppliers?
Yes, definitely. So I have founded a website called indiasourcing.net. And on the website, we have vetted manufacturers and exporters. And there are also a lot of service providers that we featured on the website. And the reason I launched this website is because there was no other platform that was really focused on India. All of the other platforms, Alibaba, Global Sources, they're really focused on China. Of course, there are Indian suppliers on those platforms as well, but they're kind of buried. 95% of suppliers over there are from China. So yeah, you can go to indiasourcing.net, search for any supplier any product that you're looking for. All the suppliers have been vetted to be manufacturers and exporters, which is really important when you're sourcing from India. You don't want to source from a domestic focused company because they have no idea of the export, requirements or the product safety requirements, for example, in overseas countries. So you want to make sure that you have an export experienced supplier. And there are also lots of service providers, so sourcing agencies, freight forwarders, lawyers, photography services, all types of services that you might need to source products from India. Another good way of finding suppliers is going to India to a trade fair. Now, there's this trade fair in India that's organized by the Export Promotion Council for Handicrafts, which is a government organization. And it's held every April and October every year. And it's sort of like the Canton Fair of India. There are about 3,000 manufacturers, exporters at the fair, and all companies are export focused because this is a 100% export focused fair. So you'll find really high quality companies there. And it's known as the Delhi Fair or EPCH Delhi Fair. It's actually a very well established fair that's been held for, I don't know, like 20 years or so, but it's grown significantly over the last 20 years. When I visited the fair for the first time, I think early 20s or so, there were about 700 exhibitors at the show, and today there are close to 4,000 exhibitors at the show. So that's a really good show to visit if you are serious about sourcing from India, and you can get to touch and feel the products and talk to the suppliers face to face. So yeah, that's something to consider.
All right. Well, speaking of that, though, a few months ago, as you know, I went to Dubai, and then I went to Pakistan, and I was going to go to. I even had my ticket ready to go to Mumbai for my first ever time to India. So I remember I had to get a visa. So like I don't think that had anything to do with COVID. Sometimes we Americans are spoiled, like we can just go anywhere with our passport, but there are some countries we apply first. But it was pretty easy. Like I found this website, and I got it within like 2 or 3 days. But I ended up not going because that was around the time that Omicron started hitting, and then the Mumbai was shutting down, and all these other cities. I was like, oh, I don't want to get stuck over there, and I only have like my carry-on luggage here, so I got an earlier flight home. But we're in March now, March, April. What's the status of like getting into the country? Like do you have to have vaccine? Do you have to have the COVID PCR test before? Is it open to tourism? What's the status?
So currently it's 100% open. There are no restrictions as such, no requirements for quarantine or anything, but you have to show your vaccination certificate, that's for sure. If you're not vaccinated, then you need a negative PCR test. But otherwise, it's completely open to all countries, and travel is completely open. And in fact, visas are very easily available. And I think nowadays you don't even have to pay for the visa fees. The visa fees has been waived as well to encourage more people to. So yeah, I mean, it's completely open.
That's not fair. I had to pay. Why didn't they do that before? Okay, yeah.
And then also the Delhi Fair that I mentioned earlier, that is actually being held in March. So end of March, they're hosting. It's going to be a smaller fair, not as big as it usually is, but the bigger fair it's going to be held in October of this year. So yeah, I mean, if you are considering going to India, then I would suggest.
Well, where is that going to be?
It's going to be in Delhi.
Okay. Yeah. And that's the airport that people would fly to.
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So, let's say regardless, I'm going March, I'm going whenever to Delhi. I'm the kind of person, they call me a bird serial killer because I like to kill 2, 3, 4, 5 birds with one stone when I travel. Which is why I was trying to go there, even though I was going to Dubai and I was going to Pakistan. Let me go to India. So, people out there who might be like me, of course, I want to go there and look for a supplier or something in this Delhi trade show. But I'm a tourist too, so talk to us. What if we go to Delhi and we want to go, sightsee to other places? Rank like the top 3 destinations you think we should go to either before or after we go to that Delhi show?
Okay, so first of all, I have to give a plug to my trip. So I do have a guided India trip that's coming up. I hosted the first one in 2019, and of course after that it was on pause. But the next one is scheduled for October 2022, and of course, Bradley, you're invited, and I think you're going to be coming as well. So
I definitely hope so. Yeah.
But yeah, so totally agree. I mean, you should. First of all, visit factories. So the trade show is it's a 5-day trade show, but I think if you spend about 3 days at the show, that should be good enough. So spend some time at the trade shows and then organize some factory visits. So a lot of the production hubs are around Delhi. So you could arrange maybe some, a car or maybe take a bus or something and visit some of these production hubs that are maybe 4 or 5 hours by road from Delhi. So for example, there's a city called Moradabad, which is basically the production hub for metal products. And there are a lot of wooden products also manufactured there. And so you could visit that city and, maybe do 3 or 4 factory tours. I would also say, in terms of cultural or places to visit, first of all, is Taj Mahal. That is one of the seven wonders of the world, and you should definitely visit that when you
And
visit
what
India.
city is that closest to?
So that's in Agra. It's in the city of Agra,
Okay.
which is again about 4 to 5 hours by road from Delhi. So on India sourcing trip, we also go to Taj Mahal and we hire a full bus and everybody goes together and it's sort of a day trip. But if you're going solo, you could definitely, hire a taxi or there are buses going there as well. That's one thing. I would also encourage people to, if they're more adventurous, to go to Jaipur, which is a very beautiful city. Lots of forts and ancient, buildings to see over there. But there's also a lot of manufacturers of wooden products and gems and jewelry and semi-precious stones. So a lot of suppliers as well, and there's history over there as well.
For those who just can't, they can't go to your trip, they just can't go, to India at all. Is the websites you mentioned earlier, the main ways? Are there other ways like, directories of sourcing agents, or what are some other ways that if I just cannot go to India, which is suggested, but I can still take advantage of finding a supplier, because it's not required. Like, it's not like, guys, hey, unless you actually physically go to India, you're not going to have success finding an Indian supplier. So other than your website, Alibaba and others, what else can somebody do? Are there any like online trade fairs? Like there's that Canton Fair from China's. They have like an online website and things like that. Is there anything like that out there?
So, yeah, I mean, first of all, totally agree with you, Bradley. We don't have to visit India. In fact, the last 3 years have proven that you can do virtual sourcing. In China, everybody has been sourcing from China virtually and also from India. So, yeah, definitely, you don't need to travel. So, there are a couple of things. First of all, these websites, Alibaba, Global Sources, indiasourcing.net, and there are also various export promotion councils in India for different industries. And these are basically government organizations, and they are tasked to increase exports in their specific industries. So I would suggest to search for your industry, your category, and then Export Promotion Council. And then once you're on their website, they usually have lists of exporters in that category. Now, of course, you can't be too narrow. For example, if you're sourcing, ceramic mugs, you can't search. There's no Export Promotion Council for ceramic mugs, but there may be for overall ceramics, right? So they may have a supplier list of like hundreds of suppliers that make all types of ceramic products, and then you have to sift through the list and find a supplier that makes ceramic mugs and make sure that they have experience in your specific market, and then they can make products that you want. And many of these lists are very basic, so you'll just have like the contact information and maybe the phone number, the website. So you'll have to sift through the list, but they're very good quality lists because they're all exporters. And only companies that are members of these export promotion councils are listed in those supplier directories from these councils. So that's another good way. Apart from that, I would say just Google. Most of the suppliers have websites. Although I also have to add that sometimes really large suppliers don't necessarily have good fancy websites. So the website that you see of a supplier is not necessarily a reflection of their capability and their size. But because Google is not blocked in India like it is in China, so most of the supplier websites are ranked on Google. And so you can just do a Google search and find some of these suppliers. There's another website that will often come up in search results. It's called indiamart.com. And I would suggest to avoid this website because there are a lot of exporters and manufacturers, but the majority of companies on the website are actually trading companies and other types of companies that actually focus on the domestic market. And I have heard so many stories of people buying products from suppliers on IndiaMart and then not being able to export them from the country because the supplier does not have an export license, or the supplier was not really a factory and they ended up with bad product. So I would, if you do use IndiaMart, just make sure you're vetting the supplier really well. You're doing your research and you're confirming that the supplier is indeed a manufacturer and an exporter, and they are indeed, who they say they are. Because unfortunately, there are, bad apples out there who are trying to just make a quick buck, and they claim to be factories and they claim to have exported to the U.S., but actually they haven't.
Okay, now speaking of that, I remember maybe 2-3 years ago, the first time we spoke on this podcast, you talked about how we were talking about pros and cons about getting your stuff manufactured in India, and there's going to be pros and cons no matter where you get your manufacturer's product. But one of the cons was where China might be better than India's at that time, Chinese factories have tons and tons of experience with Amazon sellers and with exporting. And it's like they know the game, they know all the regulations, and they know what things they have to have, and the FBA stickers and shipping times, and they just, because they've been doing it for a while. And then, but a lot of the Indian manufacturers, while they might be very experienced with what they do, is mainly just producing products domestically. And so maybe they don't know that they had to have this special FBA sticker or something on the outside of the pallet or little things like that. But now it's 3 years later. Would you say then a lot of these factories now have developed that experience, or tell me about that?
Yes, it has changed significantly in the last 3 years. And we're seeing there are a lot more factories, first of all, who want to cater to Amazon sellers. Because a lot of the factories, they're so used to catering to big importers and retailers, and they wanted high MOQs, but they are kind of being flexible, and they're more open to catering to smaller or doing smaller orders for Amazon sellers. They are definitely more familiar with labeling requirements and how to ship to Amazon warehouses directly as well, especially for freight forwarders. So yeah, definitely, and it's improved in the last 3 years as more awareness, as more Amazon sellers are sourcing from India. There is increased interest. And I'm also seeing some suppliers, they want to sell on Amazon US, themselves. Like they have their own brands and they are maybe interested in selling directly in Amazon US. So not a lot of suppliers though. Most suppliers we talk to, they're still interested in just doing, manufacturing and the B2B part of the business. But then there is
Yeah.
increased interest in B2C and selling directly to consumers as well.
Okay. What about culturally? What should foreign to India sellers know? Like every country has different cultures and norms. Whether it's what has to do with negotiation or whether it's like in China, try and make personal relationships and give gifts on their major holidays or things like that. What are some things that we should know about how we should negotiate or how we should do business with an Indian supplier?
So one of the most important things is relationships. And in India, relationships is currency, even more than it is in China. In China, of course, relationships are important, but in India, it's even more so. I've even heard suppliers, not do business with buyers, even though they place good orders, because they didn't get along with them, or they were, the buyers were kind of too pushy, or they just didn't have a good relationship. So if you do have a good relationship with your supplier, then in the long term, that really pays off. You can get better pricing, you can get better terms. Sometimes they'll even send samples to you without you having to, pay for the shipping even. And so there's a lot of benefits in the long term if you develop a good relationship with suppliers. And the way to do that is quite simple. First of all, just be a nice person. That's sort of universal everywhere in the world. But also, don't be like the know-it-all buyer, and don't be very pushy. Like that's something that I feel, Indian suppliers, they don't really like about importers. Work with your supplier as a partner and make sure that they are growing as well. And so, for example, if you have, if you get some reviews on your product, for example, that they have made, and you get really good reviews, share the reviews with them, and say that, hey, look, you made this product and it's getting such good reviews, and this is what people are liking about a product, and vice versa. If you get bad reviews, share it with them as well. And I find that Indian suppliers, a lot of them are very proud of their work. And so, that's something that you can, cultivate, work with them as partners. Um, Also, in terms of negotiation, I would say that most suppliers do expect buyers to negotiate. So that's something
Mhm.
that you should do. But don't negotiate only on price. There are so many other things that you could negotiate for, and specifically like terms, or packaging, or including additional features of the product, or maybe enhanced material. So don't focus on negotiating only on the price, but think of other ways that you can get a better deal.
Well, what about terms? Are these kind of like standard? Like, in China, I make a PO, they accept it, 30%. Usually I put a deposit and then the product is ready. I pay the other 70% and then they ship it out. kind of standard in India as well, or is it a little bit different, or what?
Yes, that's kind of standard as well for Amazon sellers, 30%, 70%. But if it's a new buyer, then, and if it's a very small order, then the advance deposit can go up to 50% as well. So I would say 30 to 50% is the deposit. And then you get your inspections done. And after the inspections have cleared, then you pay the balance. So that is pretty standard. But once you start placing repeat orders, you can definitely ask for credit. And Indian suppliers and even some sourcing agents will be happy to extend credit to you, and that can be really, really helpful, for your cash flow, especially if you're sourcing in high volumes. So once you've established a relationship with the supplier, I would say try to get some credit and try to get some better payment terms where you're actually paying them after you have received the goods and after you've started selling your products in Amazon.
Okay. All right. Well, every time you're on here, you give us a 30-second tip. So what's a tip you can give us? It could be about, sourcing from India. It could be about selling in India. It could be about touring India, Indian food, anything, or it could be about Singapore, where you where you live. Anything you want, it could be about.
Well, what I want to say is don't miss the boat. This is the time to start looking into sourcing from India and stay ahead of your competition. There are lots of Amazon sellers who are seeing success sourcing from India. So just jump on the boat. Don't miss it. This is the right time to get on the boat. And this is the right time to, diversify your sourcing, to have that China plus one strategy. Don't put all your eggs in one basket. And come to India or source from India. This is a great opportunity for all Amazon sellers.
Okay, and then you mentioned them briefly before, but how can they find you on the interwebs? Either that sourcing website you made, or the find out more information about that trip in October, things like that. How can they find you out there?
So first of all, indiasourcing.net. So you can go there, search for suppliers, contact them directly. Indiasourcingtrip.com is where you can find information about the trip and the dates. And we're filling up pretty fast. We've already got about 50 people who are confirmed for the trip. And our max capacity is around 80 to 100. So if anybody's interested, they should sign up now. And also, we have a Facebook group. So just search for Sourcing from India on Facebook, where we share a lot of resources, do live webinars. So that's another way to get in touch with me.
All right. Well, I hope to see you there in October. If not, we also have, I'm not sure if you heard, but in September, we have the biggest Amazon seller event ever in Las Vegas, Sell and Scale Summit. So guys, look for more information on that forthcoming, and hopefully Mehgla will be there, maybe exhibiting. Are you in our partner directory yet on directory.helium10.com?
Yes.
Or not yet?
Yes, we are.
Okay, so there's another way, guys, that you can find Mehgla. Go to directory.helium10.com and find her contact information there. Mehgla, thank you so much. Not many people are interesting enough to come on the podcast 3 times in our history, but you're one of the chosen few here. So let's look forward to making it maybe a 4th time in 2023, and let's see what's new then.
That's awesome. I'm honored, Bradley. Thank you so much for having me.